Okay, as was promised, we're going to talk about the grand solar cycle that I'd identified and just a few things that the trends seem to predict might occur from here on out with the present time. So the 99-year cycle, right, is made up of 10 11-year on average solar cycles, and it starts, as you can see, around 1720 and ends in somewhere around the 1800s. And if we look at, we disregard this one here and we just look from here, we can see that after this low period of sunspots, all the other solar cycles are in greater numbers than the one that comes to an end here. So there's the beginning of the cycle and there's the end of the cycle, and in between we've got the main activity. And it's just like if we was to just squash all this together, what it'd look like is a larger version of an ordinary 11-year solar cycle. But something happens around these low periods of sunspot numbers at on average a 99-year or 100-year, if you want to call it, forget the one, it's 100 years. And what is that? Well, when we get low numbers of sunspots, it correlates with history and the weather patterns that we've had in history. So if we look at 1720 here, at the beginning of a solar cycle, we can see that there was relatively a cooler period. It was within the Maunder minimum period. Again, if we go to around about 1820, we're on the Dalton minimum, and again, looking at the 1820 series of numbers on this graph, or the 99-year cycle, we can see that it is indeed the beginning of a new solar cycle. So after we go through a low period around the 20 years into the new century, it's always a cooler period. And we can see that on this graph over here. If I just bring it on over there, we can see that in the 1700s, just after 1700s, 1720, it was the Maunder minimum. That corresponds with this low amount of sunspots in the grand 99-year cycle. We got the Dalton minimum, and we can see that sunspot numbers again dropped off. Let me just choose that. Right, we can see that the numbers drop off again around 1820, and the same thing in the 1920s, only not at the same proportions as what they did in the Dalton minimum and the Maunder minimum. So there is a correlation in between the low sunspot numbers and weather, and that also fits with the 99-year grand cycle. But something, if we look at just this century that we're in at the moment, starting from 2000, we can see that there is a large increase in numbers, and then it dips significantly. Right, the last time that happened was just before the Dalton minimum, which was in the 1820s. You can see there was a large amount of sunspots and then a very large dip in the sunspot numbers, and we can see that here on the graph. You can see there's we're getting on for 140 sunspots at the peak of solar, that solar cycle there, and then it drops off very rapidly. Oh, lo and behold, we had the Dalton minimum after that. The numbers don't go back on these charts before 1700s, or I haven't got a graph that shows us the 1600s. But I'm pretty sure that what we was looking at just before the Maunder minimum took place was something along those similar lines as what we see on the Dalton minimum, where we have a rapid drop-off. Now, we've got the same thing occurring. So we're about 2015 now. That states then if at the Dalton minimum it lasted, say, 1800s, almost, say, 30 years, 35 years, we could possibly be looking then at something similar to the Dalton minimum over the next 30 years. And, that also fits what is it now, that report, remember, that Penn done. Let's go and find it so you can see. Just bear with me. So here's that report, and as you can see, It's the Livingston and Penn report. I think it was done around about 2005 or 2008. You can search that up on the internet so you can have a look. But what it states is that around 2015, which is the date we're at, the magnetic gauge drops below 1500, and that makes it less likely to produce sunspots. So what does that mean? If we have relatively cool periods over the next 15 to 25 years, it could mean certain crops fail to mature in time in certain continents around the world. Certain trees that have been accustomed to living in places like certainly the UK, which were imported, and because of the warmer period that we've been in over the last 50 years, they've managed to adapt very well to the climate. But if that climate should change, then you're going to see these trees showing indications of not coping and possibly perishing. So there's no need to attach a horror story to this. It can be pretty bad. We do depend these days, not like they did, let's say, back in the 1700s, because most people was at some level they were self-sufficient, and they could look after themselves. They would chop wood, basics. Most of them were farmers and things like that. These days, I don't think we would cope so well. But there you go. That's the 99-year cycle. And as promised, I said I'd just do a little bit of a talk upon that. So, there's more. I just want to state that there's more scientists now coming out and saying, look, we've enjoyed the warmer period, and we are looking at a prolonged cold period similar to that of either the Maunder minimum or the Dalton minimum. I was watching a video on the internet with regards to a NASA scientist who said we'd wasted that much money on global warming, trying to prove it, that there is very little money left now to prove this theory where the Earth cools, and that's a shame, really, because this seems to be more accurate than what they were saying with regards to the Industrial Revolution sparking off CO2 in the atmosphere to the point where we have created a warmer climate. But I've said this before. The Little Ice Age occurred before the Industrial Revolution, and as you can see, from 1700s to 1770, 1760, which is when the Industrial Revolution started, it had already started to pick up in temperature. So it can't be the Industrial Revolution, or since the Industrial Revolution, that we've been pumping the amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere that has caused global warming. There's no need to go on about that. We've discussed that before. So what I'm saying is a load of BS, basically, that CO2 is responsible for global warming, and we're all about to see that at some point. Well, at least all these trends suggest that that will be the case. So guys, link below if you want to support future updates on these subjects. If not, that's fine, and hopefully we'll catch up again sometime in the future. As always, guys, bye for now.